All right, welcome back to SPX 2014. I'm Rusty.
I'm Joe.
And we have
Tom Scioli.
Tom Scioli, creator of many awesome comics. So tell us a little bit about your books.
I do a comic called Satan's Soldier, and a comic called American Barbarian, and then more recently I'm working on a series, Transformers versus G.I. Joe, for IDW.
Very cool.
Now, in your research for Transformers versus G.I. Joe, and I'm sure you had to hit the library hard.
Yeah.
Do they have a natural animosity? Is there something that cannot be overcome?
To me, like whatever was there in the text in terms of motivations was not as important as just what seems to me would be the like the real world motivation would just be that, you know, you're encountering this thing that's like frighteningly alien to you. It's two forms of life that couldn't be more different from each other. So I feel like that is at the core of how these two forces would clash with each other.
So in other words, they probably aren't going to be best friends.
No, they're not. And even just like we're like 3 issues in, and already it's getting pretty ugly.
That's what happens with natural enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you and I.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Joe versus Rusty #1 coming soon, so watch out for that.
So have you had a lot of fun coming up with ways to pit these two sides together?
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, it's real. I mean, I like drawing scenes of robot torture. And
Now, a question, just to clarify, would there be a robot torturing someone or a robot being tortured?
a robot being tortured.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, yeah.
Because I didn't want to think you were weird.
No, I mean, I would like that too. It's just that with, you know, something like this where it's a licensed comic or whatever, I couldn't be as graphic in the torture of a human
humans,
being
right.
that I could with a robot. But with a robot,
You can tear robots
yeah,
apart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because I can see where you would empathize more with the Joes as a human side. So
I don't know about that because, like, the Joes you can empathize with because, yeah, they're humans or whatever, but the Transformers, because they're made out of these sort of very basic shapes and are so colorful, you almost empathize with them more the way, like, sort of Scott McCloud talks about how, you know, we identify with sort of cartoony, simplified things. So,
Right.
so these, like, scenes of, you know, like Wheeljack getting the top of his head, like, sort of screwed off and like his brains pulled out, they're very affecting. Like, you really do feel for him. Like even just like me sort of drawing it.
So if you were to make your Joes a little more colorful, a little more outlandish,
Yeah.
do you think that would help engender sympathies for them?
I mean, I have. I sort of, I treat them as, I mean, the original G.I. Joe comic book was basically superhero. It was like super soldiers, you know, it was
Right.
superheroes. So I'm trying to play that up even more, like really make them colorful, really peculiar and memorable. So yeah, I'm definitely I'm trying to make a balance, basically.
Okay, so it's easy to imagine Transformers versus G.I. Joes, but each side already has two opposing forces within them.
Yeah.
How does that work out?
I mean, it makes for a complex universe. Like, instead of sort of a two-sided war, you have this sort of multifaceted war of varying factions with different agendas. That nobody sees eye to eye. So to me, that's like, it's just more raw material for drama.
Now, might there be a time when Decepticons team up with Joes or Autobots team up with Cobra?
like,
I
do
mean-
they find a common enemy?
I kind of hate when that happens. Like,
Okay.
Because
Good, let's
Not
just
in
say
his
no.
No.
Not in this comic, guys.
I mean, I feel like this comic is going to run for such a long time that, like, we're going to have to eventually do everything.
Right.
But there was too much of that in the original, like, G.I. Joe Transformers comic in the
Yeah.
80s. It was way too much of, like, Cobra hanging out with G.I. Joe and Autobot. Like, you got to define these sides a little better.
Well, I think that's one of the things about it is you really do have to kind of marry them to an origin and a location. These are good guys, these are bad. And then eventually, once you're familiar with them in this role, then you can kind of subvert that.
Yeah, you mix
Otherwise,
it
it
up.
doesn't really mean anything.
Although, like, anytime, like, I talk to somebody and sort of have a very dogmatic idea of, like, no, I have to do this, I can't do that, immediately I start thinking, oh, wait, yeah, let me do the opposite. You know, so maybe they will team up, like, in the next issue.
No, what have I done?
Just because of
I've
this, you
altered
just
their
inspired
fates
it.
just with that question.
That's the power of SPX, guys. That just happened.
I remember the original miniseries, Transformers versus G.I.
Yeah.
Joe, and I don't remember anything about it except that I was astonished when they killed.
Was it Bumblebee?
Bumblebee, yeah.
Well, there
Yeah.
was the cover, and it was just Bumblebee exploding, basically.
Which you didn't see often.
And it was terrifying, yeah.
Like a a demolition derby right there on the cover.
Yeah.
That actually has become a tradition because Transformers and GI Joe, like that's sort of the most famous team up before this one, but they've crossed over before countless times, and that original one sort of set Bumblebee blowing up as like the recurring motif. So I have Bumblebee blow up in mine. Like I felt like I had
That makes
to.
sense.
Yeah,
Does
I
he
had
come back as Gold Bug? A Gold Bug?
He's referred to as a gold bug in that issue because when at a certain point, like somebody escapes inside of him as his sort of car self, and so like he's referred to as a gold bug. Like, oh, there goes that gold bug,
Right.
zipping up the road.
That's nice. It's a good throwback. So how did you end up working on the title with IDW?
I sent them a just like a submissions packet, just like, you know, here's a link to some of my art, and then you know, they gave me like a cover assignment for Black Dynamite, and then just shortly after that they said, you know, John Barber, the head editor and also like co-writer on the Transformers vs. G.I. Joe with me, he said, you know, how would you like to do a Transformers vs. G.I. Joe comic? So it was like that. It was that simple.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I imagine what you actually did was just sent them a really cool drawing. And it was like, this is what I want, man.
Like, let's make this.
Yeah, just make this awesome drawing happen.
I mean, I would like, I just never, like, I didn't even think, like, I wouldn't even have thought to, like,
Right.
oh, maybe they're looking to do a Transformers versus G.I. Joe comic, and maybe they'd like me to do it. Like, I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, your style is so distinctive, and it's so different from what they've had before. And so that's really cool that they actually approached you for it.
Yeah, I mean, because
Try
exactly,
that.
they wanted something new. Like, they'd been sort of doing Transformers comics for a while, and I think it was like the 30th anniversary of Transformers and like the 40th anniversary of G.I. Joe. So like for that, they wanted to kind of like, okay, let's you know, shake it up. Let's do something totally different. But like as different as it is in sort of the context of what mainstream superhero or genre comics look like in 2014, my aesthetic is actually fairly close to what these things were like in the 80s.
Oh,
Exactly.
absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to point out is that so much of the childhood nostalgic imagery or toys or what have you, it's, you know, there's I don't know, a goofiness to them originally.
Oh yeah.
But then when you try to bring them back when you're older, you always add to them like a maturity and a seriousness that wasn't there originally.
Yeah, or I mean, like a hardness. You make them hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And you sort of streamline and you make it
To like make it more enjoyable
like,
for you now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
make you less embarrassed to be
Right.
reading it. Where with me, like I sort of went the other way. Like I made it as outrageous,
Right.
and flamboyant, and exciting and colorful as possible, because I feel like we're sort of past that maybe adolescent phase,
Right.
where you're
Yes.
uncomfortable with the things that you enjoy.
Yeah, where you're like
as a child.
apologetic
Yeah,
for it, where you can
exactly.
actually just appreciate it as
Well,
it
it just
should be.
celebrate it.
I just
Yes.
reminded of the other Transformer G.I. Joe stories, where there was such a darkness to them. They were just so serious that they didn't even appeal to me. Not
Right.
that, you know, I don't know, they were fine looking.
I mean, you
whatever.
could, to me, like, you can have a range of tones within one work. So there are aspects of this comic that I take like more seriously than anything. Like I take more seriously than maybe it's unhealthy. Like I take more seriously than actual real life, real
this
world
is actually
things.
an intervention.
Yeah.
We just wanted to
Right.
talk to you
Oh,
about
that's
this.
why.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like I want to crack some jokes and goof around. You know.
Who is your favorite G.I. Joe to write?
My favorite G.I. Joe to write is Dr. Venom, who he's a villain. He's one of the Cobra guys, but in our series, he's on the G.I. Joe side now, but he's like this sort of evil doctor who is just, I mean, like in the original series, he was so well written. He was just like I think about him as being like a better comic book villain than the Joker. Like he's
Okay.
funnier than the Joker, darker, scarier, meaner, you know. So Dr. Venom would be
What
mine.
type of doctor is he?
That's not defined. So I kind of think like I'm like, okay, what kind of doctor is he? And like, what could be like a really so. And so because it's not clearly defined, I can sort of have him do like he can do an autopsy.
Well,
he can
that's
do,
what I'm thinking.
you know.
Like you could hint at it. Like one day he's working on somebody's tooth. The
Right,
next
exactly,
day it's
yeah.
like he's checking somebody's bone structure in their foot.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, what kind of doctor are you? And he's like, oh, don't worry about
It's
it.
a man of mysteries.
Yeah, exactly.
Transformers wise, what's your favorite character?
That's a hard one. Like, because I think like my go-to answer with the Transformers is like Optimus Prime, but that sounds so basic and dull, you know.
But then it
Like,
also,
I should have a better
I think it's just because everybody goes to that for a reason, you know. He's such an appealing character.
He's colorful. He's red, white, and blue. He's got kind of a cool ninja mask. And
so when I was a wee child, saw the Transformers motion picture, and Hot Rod became my favorite character.
Yeah, Hot Rod's great.
Does he appear in the series?
Yeah, I mean, I was just drawing him, and the script that me and John are working on right now, like Hot Rod shows up, and we kind of figured out some like cool stuff to do, like why he's named Hot Rod, why he has this like giant like sort of flame bird emblem on his chest.
Well, that's probably a regrettable tattoo.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Got drunk on Energon one night, and then it's just
John Juice. Yeah,
things just happen. So, would you like to answer a mystery question?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do it. Wheel it on in. Here are the quarters, all the way across the other side.
Yeah. There you go.
Now, do I open it or do
go ahead, Russ. Somebody can open it.
I can do it.
Holding microphones and opening capsules.
Complicated.
What's your question?
The question is, can you pinpoint the moment you became amazing?
Yeah.
It can be hard.
It's sort of a trick question. Like I feel like it sort of traps you.
Right,
into
because
saying
then there's
something.
a moment before that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's that, but also like it traps you into saying like the basic assumption, like I'm amazing, like just by answering that question.
I think that's
I mean,
a fair
you are. I
assumption,
think we
though,
all
yeah.
agree that you are amazing.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Can you pinpoint the moment you became amazing? I mean, I felt amazing when like Free Comic Book Day happened, because I did like a Free Comic Book Day issue, which was like the beginning of Transformers versus G.I. Joe.
Oh, yeah.
And it was this like crazy like where I'm like, okay, this is my graduate thesis. This is where I put everything I learned in comics, one short comic book, and then put it out there. So like, to me, that was like an amazing, like when that came out, and like just like seeing people's reactions and seeing like on Twitter and all that stuff, like that felt amazing. That felt like a turning point. So if there were
There
a
you
point
go.
in my life where I became amazing, that
There you go. I think that's
All
a
right.
great answer.
Yeah, seriously. And yeah, that book had such wide coverage and everything too. It was cool to have it just out there to the world.
Totally, yeah. I mean, that's how I view that sort of whole Free Comic Book Day thing, is like you got to just put like everything you've got into it, because like more people are going to check that out than anything else you do.
Right, and it's nice that it is just a single item that they can enjoy, and hopefully they want more afterward.
Totally.
Well, thanks so much for talking to us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah,
Good
it
luck
was
at the
so much
show.
fun. Thank you. You too.
And check out Transformers G.I. Joe.